going on, guys? This is Gabe, and finally uploading the footage of the track day that I've been prepping for. So this is the first day of, the first time me tracking the F80, and it was great. Overall, I smashed my personal best, and yeah, I want to upload this video, a whole session, so it's a whole 14 minutes long. And just go over a couple things with you guys about the car and then the expectations for it for Auto Club Speedway and Laguna Seca coming up here in June. So let's get started. So first thing I want to talk about was the suspension. If you guys haven't seen my videos before, you'll know, or you won't know, that I run KW V3s with a ground control coilover completion kit. That just includes camber plates, springs, and sway bar end links. I run a white line sway bar front and rear that's adjustable. I just made a video a couple days ago actually of me adjusting it for the track, just basically putting it to the stiffest setting in the front and the middle setting in the rear. Pretty easy process. And what else we got? SPL lower and upper control arms in the rear, lower control arms in the front, thrust arms in the front, and a roll center / bump steer tie rod end kit in the front as well. So pretty expensive suspension setup, and it performed amazing. Now with the sway bars being adjusted, it made a big difference. It made a big difference actually on corner exit as well. It seemed like the car was able to take off faster out of a turn, and I even noticed that just driving on the street too. It just felt like it just had more, how do I say, less slop, and yeah, it just felt great. It just put down the power perfectly, you know. But I did forget to adjust my rebound and dampening, and on this coilover setup I have them pretty soft for the street, and I forgot to change it. So I feel like if I go back, slowly adjust the coilovers every session to, you know, stiffer setting until I find out what's correct and what's right for me, there's still a bunch of time left out there that I can make up, so that's promising. For tuning, I was running the boot mode stage 2 tune off the shelf. Still have not got my custom race gas tune. Hopefully pretty soon here before Laguna Seca I can get that knocked out, but there was no overheating at all. Car didn't feel like it was being overpowered or had too much power for this pretty short track, really. And I strategically put boost reduction on in third gear and second. I ended up finding out though that I don't even use second for this track. Third gear had a 20% reduction in boost, which was obviously to combat the spiky torque that this car has. But like on this straight right here, as soon as I hit fourth gear, that car is fucking gone. Yeah, it's just a rocket. It's a rocket out of the turns on the straights. And then you're hitting that. By the end of the day, I was hitting that at like 110, 115, which was sketch. But the car doesn't really feel sketchy at all. It's just mental, really. You're just basically not used to hitting turns that fast. So, you know, when you're not used to it and it doesn't look familiar to you, you kind of have to be able to just mentally set aside the visual differences, I guess. I don't know how else to explain it other than you just gotta fucking send it. Bottom line, you can't let your mentality get in the way of sending a fast lap. So let's talk about the brakes. I made a video about the brake lines as well. The brakes were great. They were very consistent. No sponginess, just consistency all day. No fade, nothing. Even towards the end of the day when I wasn't even braking until the last corner right here, not right here, but right here, there was still no brake fade. I will need to replace the rotors though. The rotors are shot. They are old and pretty much used up the last of them for this track day. So we'll get a new set. Rotors are becoming more price efficient on this chassis, which is good news. And yeah, it'll be ready for ACS with some new rotors in the front. Cooling, like I touched on, was not an issue at all. Car felt cool. Didn't feel like I was losing power. Nothing like that. Nothing funny. I drove the car out there 2.5 hours, tracked it, drove it 2.5 hours home. Nothing to remark other than the fact that it was just perfectly fine with, being abused all day and driven home. So put a good 500 miles on it. Not 500, sorry. About 300 miles on it round trip. And the tires I ran with were Pirelli DHs, Pirelli DHs are the ultra performance slick tire for Pirelli. It's like used in racing series and whatnot. And I was able to find some for super cheap on Facebook Marketplace. I bought a used set. I kind of like to keep my tire budget super low and try and find used tires. There's so many race teams that end up selling their used tires that you're able to take advantage of. I also like to stay with the same tire, so hopefully you can keep finding these Pirelli DHs used on Facebook, so that way you just get comfortable with the feel of a certain tire. You know how it's going to react at certain speeds, and it's just nice to have that consistency in that department. The grip was amazing. It definitely held down the power. But another thing to note too, as well, is I was actually running with MDM mode on, and that's just because this is my first track day with this car. I'm not trying to wreck it. I'm not trying to send it off the track just yet. I'm not trying to push it as hard as possible right now until I understand how the car reacts, how the car is, and basically learn the car from inside out. But I am a big believer in really trying to test out your equipment, and so my belief is, I had the head rebuilt. I had this motor basically rebuilt. It better damn well fucking handle the abuse that I put it through if I'm gonna spend that money that I did to rebuild it and do all that. Same with the suspension. It better be able to take the abuse. I don't really buy anything without considering the function. If it doesn't function, it's not on this car, honestly. And that's just how I feel. I'm not one of those people that goes on track and is worried about, my $100,000 car, I don't want it to get rock chipped, or I don't want it to get abused too much. No, for me it's quite the opposite. I'm gonna send the car and it better handle it, or else I'm gonna be heavily disappointed. And at that point I'll just move on to something else. But didn't have to worry about it with this car, thankfully. And we'll keep tracking it and see how it goes. Other than that, car felt great. It felt nimble. It felt light through these turns. This is a track that favors lower horsepower cars that are smaller and lighter. And the car did not feel big at all. It didn't feel big. It didn't feel too overpowering. It really felt at home. And I was really impressed with that with all the work that I put into this car. It took everything that I threw at it and just handled it all perfectly fine. The car definitely outperformed how I figured it would. It outperformed what I had in mind, which was pretty weird. Like, you'd think with all the suspension work, like, you'd expect it to be fast and be a great track car, but you just never know until you get out there. And it outperformed my goals for sure. I wasn't even too sure if I was going to be able to set a better personal best than what I did with the E36, and this car just fucking smashed it out the park. So very impressed with that. And overall, it was just a great shakedown for ACS in Laguna Seca, and I'm really looking forward to those tracks coming up in a couple weeks here. You guys already know I'll be recording videos on those tracks as well and doing some commentary on those. But as far as the car goes, I had a great time out there with it, and that's pretty much all the topics I wanted to talk about. Now we can get into talking about some of the lines that I was taking and some of the cars that were on the track with me. So this event was hosted by Speed District, And they're more of a pricier organization because of the cars they bring out are a little more on the expensive side. And I don't think you really saw too many expensive cars so far in this video, but in some of the other groups there's some high-end cars, $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 cars out there tracking. And I think that's kind of how they keep expensive cars on the track, because other owners know, like, oh shit, we're both paying good money to be out here, you know, let's not fuck our cars up, basically. So I'm hunting down this E46 M3, waiting for the point buy, and eventually we get it. Now this is the intermediate group, and even the intermediate group was kind of slow, to be honest with you. A lot of waiting for point buys was going on. It's not to say that the track etiquette wasn't good, but it was definitely one of those track days where there's a lot of cars and it's just congested. It's hard to get a clean lap, basically, and that's why I truly believe that this car can get into the low 120s, 121, 122, even a 120. I think is very possible with this car on a good lap, a clean lap, clear lap with traction control finally off once I get comfortable, and some new tires too, because these ones were pretty shot, honestly, by the end of the day. So we finally get the point by, but I gotta swing a little wider than normal just because he's on that inside line, and then it's off to the races and the S's. And I think this is Ronnie that I'm coming up on. This is my buddy, I think, in the Type R, the gray Type R with the wing. Yep. So able to reel him in pretty quickly, but that's just because he's dealing with traffic himself. And I think this might be the last lap. I'm not too sure. We'll see though as we come across the finish line. So he gives me the point by, the Lotus gives me the point by, and we're fucking sending it 115 down the hill. Trying not to brake. By the end of the day, like I said, I wasn't braking until around this point right here. And that's just because, like I talked about, that mentality. You gotta really be comfortable with the car to be doing some shit like that. And eventually we got there, so pretty excited for the next track days, like I said. Waiting for the point by. We get it from the GTI. S2K is trying to rev out, but then he ends up giving it to me. I swing wide right here and then come back on. Hit that about 100, 110 miles an hour. Try to keep it inside right here, keep it tight. Punch out, punch out, punch out. Brake at the last second here. Swing wide, then slowly bring in the apex. It's a late apex for that one right there. Swing left, and then it's a blind apex right there. You guys see all the grass right there, and you probably couldn't even see the apex for a little bit while I was turning in. That's just all driver knowledge right there. As long as you have the experience and you know where to put the car, you'll be able to predict when that apex is open, basically, when you can turn that car in there. Dropping down low, using the G's of the turn to basically keep me gripped as I'm wide open throttle all the way through. Sending it down the hill again. Trying to keep the chassis as balanced and as under control as possible. And then to the skid pad, and then back to the finish line straight. So that was actually a pretty good lap. I mean, there was traffic involved, but not too much. Everything was at the traffic that I did hit was at a manageable spot. And I think that was the last lap, I'm pretty sure. So if you guys liked this commentary, if you guys liked what you saw as far as the F80's first track day, or have any questions, please drop it in the comment section. If you guys enjoyed the video, I'd love it if you guys subscribed or liked. Other than that, guys, we'll catch you later on the next one. Peace.